Hello and welcome to another episode of Bulls 101. I'm your boy Larro, as usual. You know how we do things here, and I'm always accompanied by my brother Kris Amundsen. Kris, how are you doing, brother? How are you doing?
Wow, accompanied. I've never been so fancy in any of my intros. I'm impressed. I'm doing good, man. I am doing good. Bulls are on a 9-game winning streak. Felt like a long time between Bulls games this week, but we finally got one last night, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up watching it this morning. I couldn't catch it live, but it was a great game. Actually, the reason I couldn't catch it live is my wife and I went and saw Spider-Man. It's the first
Ooh,
movie we've seen in the theater since before the pandemic started. So it's really good. It was a lot of fun. I recommend it.
yeah. I actually ended up going to see Spider-Man with Celine, and it was good, man. It was some good stuff. Obviously, set up some things for Phase 4 going forward. And that was some good stuff. I'm excited for the next Spider-Man's coming up.
There's a lot of nostalgia there. Because the Spider-Man movies I grew up on with Tobey Maguire and then later Andrew Garfield. It
Oh
was kind
yeah,
of nice to see that inclusion there. So that was really cool.
yeah, that was dope. That was so dope. But you know, along with that great movie, there's been some great stuff going on with our favorite basketball team in the Chicago Bulls, and they're currently on a 9-game winning streak. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this streak. Maybe touch on certain players or certain things that you've seen. I just kind of want to hear some things from you about this winning streak.
Well, I mean, it's obviously impressive when we can get 9 games against anybody in a row in the league. It's impressive. Some of the wins have come against squads that have been missing some guys with COVID protocols, but the Bulls have also been one of the most effective teams in the NBA by that. So, they're taking care of business. There were 2 obviously crazy game winners by DeMar in games that we probably should have lost, based on how poorly we played for most of the time.
Yeah,
But we didn't. DeMar came through and was cooking. And then the last 2 games, he's kind of been off with his shooting. But, like last night, Io and Kobe stepped up. Kobe's had a great 9-game streak as well. He's been playing really, really well. And I tweeted today is not only the shooting that's obviously hot, and, that's going to go up and down, but the little things that he's doing to impact the game in a positive way, I think, are becoming more consistent. And that's something we've talked about many times with Kobe. We've always talked about, hey, even if you're not scoring, what else are you doing for me on the floor? Are you
hmm
rebounding? Are you playing your help defense well? Are you
yeah,
guarding? Are you passing? And we talked about his playmaking a couple. I think it was last week.
yeah,
Talked about his playmaking and the improvements he's making there. But I've been really impressed with Kobe, and I'm really happy for him. And then Io, man, Io has been a revelation.
yeah.
Every time he gets on the court, I'm excited about it because he always makes himself known. Like
Mm.
he's never Tony Snelling it out there, just chilling in the corner. Like not. He's always affecting the game in some way. Now, in the beginning of the season, we were saying, sometimes he'd affect it in a positive way, sometimes he'd affect him in a negative way, but he was always affecting the game.
Yeah,
That is trending all positive in the last
yeah,
month or so. He's been really impressive. I could not be happier with where he is. And so that's where I'm at. I think the defense overall has been pretty poor, and Billy Donovan has said as much. I think Alex Caruso is going to really help that when he comes back. But overall, it's really hard to nitpick a 9-game winning streak. But I would say, the defense is the one area of concern we have going forward. But the Bulls' offense is finally clicking. They're 4th in the league in offense. So a lot of stuff to be excited about.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you on all accounts that you brought up, and um, I, the defense definitely has been not what we came to be accustomed to this season, but I just feel like once Alex gets back, things will kind of get right. They'll get back into gear, things like that. I mean, I think if you rewind and you go back to the offseason and you don't and let's say you get all the same signings except for maybe let's say Alex Caruso stays with the Lakers. I think this may be about what the defense would look like if you didn't have a Caruso on this team, because we talked about it on this podcast, and Lonzo is a great defender, when he's kind of when he's allowed to be like a free safety roamer off ball. And with Caruso being here, with Caruso being out with COVID and the hamstring, it it kind of pushes him a little bit more into that point of attack and takes that kind of roamer free safety away that we're used to when Caruso's around. And like for instance, when with the Wizards, when they're running those pick and roll actions and running that double high horn set, if you get hit by those screens, that means Vooch has to step up a little bit more. And that backside rotation has to be a little bit better. And it hasn't been as pristine and as clean as it has early in the season without Javonte and without Lonzo and everybody being right where they should be with when Caruso's on the floor. But honestly, the biggest takeaway for me is that this team just continues to find ways to win. And they may not be perfect. But the end goal is like we're not gonna look back at the end of the year and say, "Gosh, we should have had that game," because now we're seeing that these guys are they understand they have to get better. They've talked about it, but when it all comes to the end of the game, like who has a W? And for the most part, these guys have been doing the best that they can to take care of these wins. DeMar has had a big imprint on those, but. I'm just very excited. I'm also eager for this upcoming schedule because it's one thing, right? We've passed a lot of tests this year that we've had for this team. We wanted to see them, stack wins. We wanted to see them continue to be carry over that defensive intensity, that way of playing offensive basketball together with being unselfish and moving the ball around. We want to see if all that transferred from preseason to the regular season, and obviously now we can say that it has. But now it's kind of like once you start to win ball games and put yourself in a different bracket in terms of where you tier teams. Like now you kind of want to see them against those top teams and see where you measure up. And I think that's why I'm kind of eager for that. What about you? Do you feel the same way?
100%. Yeah. The team said it. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. The Bulls have a little gauntlet, another mini gauntlet. They had a gauntlet to open the season of like 14 straight playoff teams. And they've got another gauntlet where they've got, they're going to face Milwaukee and Brooklyn Nets, Warriors. They're going to face a bunch of teams in a row, some back-to-backs. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. East Cokes, shout out. Thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, hell of a Bulls team so far. Couldn't agree more. It's been really, really great to see what they've done and the growth of the team. And as you mentioned, Larro, great teams find a way to win even when they're not playing well. That's I think one of the marks of a great team. So really awesome to see. There's been a lot of chatter on Twitter the last couple of weeks about those growing expectations, I think. Because I think when we came into the season, we thought they would be a playoff team.
Yeah.
I think you and I were more optimistic about their chances of being in the playoffs versus the play-in. I thought they would get to 5 or 6 in the East.
Yeah.
They're currently 3 games up in the loss column to the second place Brooklyn Nets. So they're number 1 in the East right now. The schedule is about to get a little harder, but they've given themselves a little bit of a buffer in the standings. Proud of them and props to them for doing that. But it's brought up with those expectations some magnification of their weaknesses and where we could possibly make some improvements. And so the trade deadline is coming up on February 10th. And a lot of people are interested to see what AK and Mark Eversley are going to do at the trade deadline. We know AK just came on his first media comment since the beginning of the season this last week, said how much he liked the team, said how much, he was impressed with what they were doing. But he also said, we're listening. We're always looking to improve. And there was a friend of ours in a group chat talked to AK, ran into him at a game, and basically said thanks for saving the Bulls. and they basically told him we're not done yet,
Yeah.
which we've heard that from AK before. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued at what they could do. And the national media has brought up a couple of names in the last few weeks of trade targets, because I think with Patrick Williams going down so early and the prognosis of his return being somewhere into the end of the season, optimistically, and maybe he won't come back at all, there's a big forward size hole in our roster right now. And so two of the very popular names that have come out over the last couple of weeks are Jerami Grant on the Pistons and Harrison Barnes on the Kings. Both teams are not in playoff contention right now, although the Kings every year seem to convince themselves that they're going to until after the trade deadline, and they don't make the necessary moves to get a great draft pick. But they're still trying to hang on to the play-in. The Detroit Pistons have no delusions of grandeur. They're tanking for their money's worth. So those are two guys I know that a lot of people have talked about on Twitter, but I know you and I said, hey, let's break down some film on these guys and say, if they did come to this team, what would they provide to us? Is it worth it? Because a lot of the trade scenarios that have come up involve trading Patrick Williams as the centerpiece of that trade. Yeah. Some of them have included Kobe White and Derek Jones Jr. as filler. And Derek Jones Jr. is a really solid player for us. Kobe's been a really solid player for us. And Patrick Williams has a lot of promise. So I think, it's got the fan base split a little bit on if it's worth it. So, I know I wanted to dig into some film and some stats on these guys. And so I know we split that up. But I did want to mention one more thing about the defense.
Yeah.
I really think early on in the season, we ran some film on this. When Caruso and Lonzo were both on the court, it was deadly defensively. They just caused so much havoc. And I really think that in that same sense, Ayo and Javonte Green have also stepped up. So when two of those four are on the floor, I think our perimeter defense has really, really been solid.
Yeah.
And there's other guys that have stepped up, like Troy Brown Jr. has been a really good point of attack defender, and he's gotten better at help defense. Derek Jones has been a good defender. We've got a lot of quality guys on the team, but I think specifically those four have been kind of the spearhead of our defense. And one of the reasons that defense has slipped is Lonzo and Caruso were out for a couple weeks. Caruso's still out, and then Javonte Green is now going to be out for a couple more weeks. I think they said 2 to 4 weeks. So, that's a big blow to our defense, and I think that's kind of been a contributing factor there.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a big factor to that. Again, man, I mean, Vooch, DeMar, and Zach, they're defending to the best of their ability. I mean, and that's no slight at them. I truly believe that they're giving it their best, and for the most part, they've done pretty well. There are some points where it could be better, but again, like without that engine and Alex Caruso, who kind of sets the tone for that side of the ball. I mean, it could be a little, you can miss players like that easily. But again, goes back to the continuing to win. But I totally agree with everything what you're saying. Like losing Javonte, that's huge too, because you could play him all around. He can guard 1 through 4, small ball 5, depending on what team you're playing. If the Warriors want to run that Jonathan Kuminga lineup, you could guard the 5, and you can have. You could just mix it up. He just does so many good things for you. He gives you more options if you're Billy Donovan out there. So. Yeah, man, you're definitely onto something with that.
Hey, I want to ask you a quick question. We got a question from Jay, or not a question, but he says, I would like for the Bulls to go after Boogie Cousins. Let's go Bulls. So Boogie's meeting with the Denver Nuggets apparently to sign a 10-day. It's not for sure yet, but at this point, it's interesting because I think we definitely need someone that can guard in the front court a little bit more. Personally, I would love to sign Boogie on a 10-day. That would be fun to see him in a Bulls uniform. And I think he's been helpful this season in a lot of ways. But I do think long-term, I really feel like we need just one more piece to really be a championship contender on the level of Brooklyn and Milwaukee. So let's dive into the Jerami Grant and Harrison Barnes, and see what we can learn about them. So if you want to start with Harrison Barnes, I know he's been a target that our friend Mort Jensen has been kind of leading the charge on. He wrote a story recently about it, and a lot of our friends in the Bulls Twitter sphere, think of Harrison Barnes as a pretty seamless fit offensively for us. So I want to see if you had some film on him that we could go into and kind of help the viewers understand what Harrison Barnes is doing on the Kings and how he could fit into the Bulls.
Yeah. So my biggest thing with Harrison Barnes is, yes, the seamless fit. Like, I do believe that he is someone that can come onto the Bulls team, won't ruffle any feathers in terms of having to do something different for him to be integrated into the offense. Like, watching him with the Kings, like, he is they have him in the corner a lot. And Tyrese Halliburton and wow, why am I blanking on De'Aaron Fox? They attack downhill off pick and roll or beating guys off the dribble, and they do a really good job of finding him in the corners. And he has just been lights out. I mean, catch and shoot this year, I believe he's at 46% on 3.7 attempts a game. Overall, he's 42%. For the year, he's 42% on 4.9 attempts a game. So he's someone in terms of the shooting department that would fit right in. There's been plenty of times where love Javonte, but there's been plenty of times where, like, if we play the Knicks, there's been times where teams will just leave him wide open. They'll just leave him. Well, if you add somebody like Harrison Barnes, there's no way you're leaving Harrison Barnes. There's absolutely no way. And not only that, diving into film, they've also had him off, coming off screens and catching and shooting off movement shooting. And he's done really well with that as well. They gave him some pick and roll reps. He's done really good actually with those as well, and pick and roll as the ball handler. Does a good job of putting guys in jail and using his big body and his length to get to the basket and finish. And again, like, that's working with Richaun Holmes. And that's no disrespect, because Richaun is a really good player. But if you put him in a pick and roll setting with Vucevic and you got him popping or you got him rolling hard, that's going to create space for him to even be a little bit more freer to work off the pick and roll. So, I mean, there's offensively, like I just feel like it's just that good of a fit. He's right on the timeline as well. He's 29 years old. He's right on the timeline with what they have right now. And I think there's a little bit more you can squeeze out of Harrison Barnes with this team. He's handled the ball a bit with the Kings, and I think he could do that with the Bulls as well, depending on how defenses play Zach and DeMar. If they double them and try to get the ball out of their hands, you can throw it to Harrison and run some different things with him. You can't really do that with Javonte. You kind of got to use him as a cutter. And also, too, there's a couple clips I saw of Harrison as a cutter. He's a pretty smart. He's just an overall smart player. He has a good feel for knowing when he needs to back cut, reading his defender, and making the right smart cut. So he's just smart on the other end. Defensively, now that's a different story, right? So he's not like a deadbeat. He's not. I don't think he's someone that you can throw out there and they'll just tank the defense. I think if you put him around a defense like the Bulls have, and you ask him to do, just kind of what they're doing now, where it's just, you stay on the perimeter. We're not asking you to really, let Vooch handle his business down there. I honestly, depending on who you're playing, I would like to see how a small ball 5 would look with Harrison Barnes if we were to get him, just to see how that looks. Because I think he is a smart player. I think he is someone that sets good screens. And I would just like to see that if we got him. But let's probably get into some clips now. I've talked probably too much on him already. So let's do that. But let's see. Where do I want to start first with HB? Let's just go with a very simple clip here first with him. What's full size? So, like I said, the Kings they have two guards that really apply pressure to a defense at all times. Tyrese Halliburton being one that does it differently off tilted defenses. But he's kind of surprised a lot of draft Twitter and a lot of people that scouted him of his self-creation ability since he's been in the league. But having a guy like Harrison Barnes who you can put him on the opposite side of the action and really just stretch a defense out and make whoever that is the low man or whoever is on the supposed to be nail help or two passes away, make them have to make a decision on a rotation. And here you got Buddy Hield. They kind of show two here, and Avery Bradley is kind of almost got to play two in a way, because what's going to happen is this cut here, his dive cut. THT is gonna have to worry about that because Braun is actually playing guarding Alex Lynn. So you're gonna have Avery Bradley have to choose in the backside here. So now he's in a position where he has to worry about ball and also worry about here on the wing. And Marvin Bagley could have got this ball there quicker, but he still got it there in time where it's a nice open shot. And I mean, he just fluid. I mean, Harrison Barnes, just the jumper is just. It's very fluid. It's very, very, very quick as well. He's got a quick release when he needs to get it off quick as well. So just a very simple catch and shoot rep, but like that's the stuff you need. You need guys because not to shamelessly plug my article is going to be probably coming out tomorrow, but on Kobe. But when you have three stars like Vucevic, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan, you need to aid those three guys with spacing, floor spacing players, players that can provide spacing in certain in different ways. And Harrison Barnes is that guy that gives you that opportunity, that gives you that ability. This one I thought was pretty cool. So they're going against the Hawks here. Tyrese Halliburton swings the ball to Damian Jones, and they're going to run like a Chicago action here. He gets that pin down from De'Aaron. Handoff kind of flip from Damian Jones, and he just takes that one dribble, pulls up, knockdown. He's just very smooth when it comes to getting into his shot. Again, just another addition from the 4 spot, having this ability. I mean, I think this is just something that takes the offense to top 2, if not 1, with this type of ability from the 4.
So I was going to ask you about that. Do you think, because our offense is so good already, even with guys like Javonte and DJ and Ayo and stuff on the floor who aren't don't have a lot of shooting gravity?
Yeah.
Do you think that Harrison Barnes is worth the cost? Well, maybe not. I'll ask you this question later. But do you think there's going to be diminishing returns on his addition to the offense? Like, do you really think it's going to make a huge difference to our offensive capability?
I do, because when I think about Harrison Barnes, I'm not really just thinking about regular season. I'm thinking about playoffs as well, where a lot of the reasons you kind of get away with Javonte and a couple of these other guys is because you're getting out into transition, you're turning guys over, you're getting turnovers in the regular season. But when you get into the playoffs, a lot of that goes down. You start playing teams that don't turn the ball over that much. You start playing teams they grind out possessions. They know where they want to get to. And then it gets to a certain point where it's about execution. It's about, what I'm going to run. I know what you're going to run, but can you stop it? And when you get to the playoffs, I mean, that's going to be tough to play Javonte Green at certain points when teams, know the Bulls sets. They know where they want to get to. They're going to be able to scheme differently because they know, what, if Javonte Green beats us, he beats us, but we're not going to allow Zach LaVine, we're not going to allow DeMar DeRozan to beat us. And when you have a guy like Harrison Barnes, who, again, like I said, he can run pick and roll. He can, not only is he a catch and shoot player, he shot well off movement a little bit. He also is a good cutter. And so he also had some nice plays out of the mid post, low post area. So he adds another dimension to this offense that I think that could take them even higher, and especially for playoffs, because if you can surround Vooch with 4 shooters, I mean that's just consistent shooters. Like Harrison, like I said, he's 40+% from overall 3, but catch and shoot he's still 46%. So it's being able to surround him with Vucevic, who I'm talking about here, with 4 shooters and guys that can handle the ball, put the ball on the deck a little bit. Like, I think that takes you to another level. And like I said, Javante, I love Javante, but I think in the playoffs it's going to be tough to play him because teams are going to be able to scheme differently with him on the floor.
Yeah, so I mean, the last 5 years, his 3-point percentage, according to Cleaning the Glass, has been 39%, 42%, 38%, 39%, and then 42% this year. And as you mentioned, off the catch, it's even higher than that. So he's been a good shooter for a while.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, I agree that having a guy like that in the playoffs is pretty important to, as a pressure release valve for scoring. Like, I already think in some ways our offense is kind of unguardable because of how many threats we have. Like Vooch, DeMar, and Zach are all number one scorer type options. They were on their team, and any one of them can get going. And then we got guys like Kobe White who can put up 20 on any given night, as he's shown. Yet Lonzo can get hot. Like, we got a lot of guys who can score. So that's why I asked that question. If there would be diminishing returns.
That's also another. You brought up another idea. Is like Lonzo, right? There are games where he's a pretty volatile player. Like, right, he is still impactful, but I mean, in terms of points, again, playoffs, you're gonna need a fourth guy that can get you some buckets, and Harrison Barnes is definitely that. I mean, there are gonna be games where, like we all know, Lonzo, he'll go 7 for 7 one game from 3, and then the next game he'll go 0 for 6, but he'll give you 7, 8, 10 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. So it's like, he makes up for it. But like when you need those points, Harrison Barnes is a guy that can get you that within the offense. That's just how I see about it. Right? I mean, how I go about it. Excuse me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've got Tony the Pod Boss. Thanks for joining us, man. Leaving some comments here. So, first said he thinks that Harrison Barnes might be a defensive liability. So we'll definitely get to that. I know we'll talk about that. His comment here is we need rim protection and defense more than scoring. That's his opinion. So Tony, there's a big split right now, kind of among the fan base of who of these two players would be more important, because Jerami Grant is definitely more known for his defense and, as we said, rim protection. Harrison Barnes is obviously more known for his offensive capabilities and his shooting. So I think it's a good debate to have, and I think lots of fans have kind of been on both sides of this, and I'm sure you and I are on both sides of this in some aspects as well. But yeah, he also mentions Robert Covington as a buyout player. I do not think that Covington will be a buyout player. Portland traded 2 first-round picks to get him. I think he might be available, though. And if he is available, I think he's a really good candidate. Yeah, if we're not looking to trade a guy like Patrick Williams, I think Robert Covington could be a really nice addition on the defensive end, who can shoot and do a little thing. Yeah, do some nice things for us. But yeah, thanks for the comments, and we'll keep looking at them. What were you saying, Lara? I know you got some more clips here on the offensive end with what Harrison can do.
This one, this play here was against the Miami Heat, obviously here. But what I loved about it is the Kings are going to try to get into some Chicago action here. You get a double drag. Marvin Bagley goes over to set the pin down. Damian Jones with the handoff. But Jimmy Butler does a good job of kind of closing that off. And then I just love the fast processing of Harrison Barnes here. He just understands, okay, let me get back door, and he finishes it. And that's what I look for too. Like, guys that, like, there are certain guys where they're good scorers, but they don't get it within the offense. You gotta ISO and give them a whole block. You gotta give them a whole side and let them go to work from the mid post. This guy here can get you. I mean, these are the same sets the Bulls run. They delay it. This would be Vooch. This would be Javante, and this is how you get into it, right? This is the same stuff. Jimmy's gonna play that the same way, and just seeing him being able to just get downhill on the back door, just read the floor, read what his defender's doing. Like that's the stuff you need. You don't need guys if you're gonna add guys. You don't need guys that need to get it their own way because you already have two guys, and both of them get in within the offense. But they also can be guys where it's like, okay, get them the ball and get out of the way. I just like the fact of Harrison Barnes, where, like I said, you want to run your double drag, you want to run your Chicago, Miami, whatever you want to run. He can do that stuff. He can dribble, pass, and shoot. So it's not something that you have to worry about if you were to bring him on. You can run whatever. You don't have to run anything differently. You can literally just plug and play him, and you guys be right away, right into what you need to do. This one here. Let me go back here. So Tyrese, they run in Chicago here for I believe this is that's De'Aaron. He always throws me off with the haircut. But De'Aaron, and this is what I love too. He can get it off the bounce as well. He's not only a catch and shoot guy, he can get it off the bounce as well, right? So you catch it, double rip, gets by, right into Steven Adams' chest, finish and one. And again, he's just a very versatile offensive player. Once again, this is within the offense, right? He gets downhill, nail help comes, he just attacks the closeout, right? This is not something different that you need to run for him. And that's just what appeals to me with Harrison Barnes.
I'm sorry. Look at Steven Adams' face right there.
Oh, I didn't even see that. I didn't even see that.
Look, he's like, I like that shot. That's a nice one. I don't know why that just threw me off, man.
But no, man. This is my thing. I get it. Defensively, I just feel like.
Well, hold on. Before we get to the defense, I want to ask you about his creation ability and his passing. Mm-hmm. So I know he can get shots within the offense. He can come off screens. He can dive to the basket. He can, do that, hit the corner shot. What's his ability to create his own shots or create for others? And, what's his passing ability like in your opinion?
So with his passing ability, the Kings kind of used him as like a play finisher almost. So a lot of his passing was just like it wasn't really him coming off and firing a beautiful skip pass with the seeing the defense rotating. Yeah. It's him making an extra pass or just maybe a pass down for a fast break layup or something like that. But for the most part, it was him being a play finisher. And I don't. Again, I'm gonna watch more Kings games, but these were a couple of, because I asked a couple of our guys in the chat wearing what games I should look at, and I'm gonna watch more to get a better sense of his passing. But the games that I've watched, I mean, these different ways of him being able to be used in offense is just what popped to me, because defensively, we'll talk, like you said, we'll get to it. Just a couple more clips, and then we can talk about that. But this is something that I'd love to see from him, because DFS is a pretty good defender. So I just like to see this in this pick and roll set here. Get a flip ball screen from Rashawn, and this is what I love to see. This is what I was looking for when I saw this. I'm like, oh wait, let me see how he handles this. Right, comes around and he just instantly puts DFS in jail here, and I love that. That's him just being patient. He's not rushing this. He's letting the play develop, and then he attacks when he has that opening. And that's just some good patience from him. And again, if you guys, if you're listening and you're watching this, like you'll easily see my side of things here, right? And it's kind of the same way. Like, I'll just say it. It's kind of the same way as the Nets, right? Last season, like nobody really thought the Nets defense was going to be stellar, right? But they had an answer for every scheme you wanted to send them offensively. So and I go back to what I said before the season when we had Steph Noah on and when we talked about defense, one of the best ways to be a good defensive team is to be a good offensive team in terms of putting the ball in the net and getting back to set up your schemes that you want to run. And when you add a guy like Harrison Barnes to your offense, yeah, you'll take a little bit of a hit on your defense, but your offense is going to be so efficient. Like teams are going to have a problem playing the Chicago Bulls with this type of potent offense. And that's just the way I go about it, like the way I think about it. Because when you think about it, the Nets almost beat the Bucks, and that was just with KD for in the corpse of James Harden. So it's like it's like I understand like defense wins championships. Defense is a huge deal, but you also need to be able to counter a lot of these defensive schemes that teams are going to throw at you. And when you have guys like 4 guys on the floor that can shoot it, well, 5 really if you add a Harrison Barnes because of Vooch. We're talking about unguardable now. Like this offense would be unstoppable. Like there's just nothing you would be able to throw at it. Like right now, what you can throw at it is being able to just leave Javante and have a 5th guy just roam on any other action. With that, I mean, with Harrison on this team, there's none of that. You can't do that. You just can't. So the spacing, the floor opens up even more so than it is now. So it's that's just the way I go about it. And again, my way is not right way. But I love that we can have a different opinion, everyone, about what winning basketball, what it takes to be a winning basketball team, how to win. There are different ways to win, and this is just the way I go about it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was going to say that is, there's more than one way you can win a championship or you can win a game, and making your offense unguardable is definitely one of them. Making it unstoppable with that kind of thing. Making your defense stellar is also another way. Defense wins championship. Ferg, what's up? Good evening or good morning or wherever you are in the world. But thanks for hanging out on Bulls 101. Talking about Harrison Barnes and Jerami Grant and how they would fit in to the offense and defense of the Bulls and what it would cost. So, yeah, Tony's got a comment here. You don't need a 4th guy in the starting lineup. You want more points from your bench. Lara, I know you look like you had something to say about that.
Well, here you can never have too much offense, man. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know what you don't need a 4th guy and stuff. I don't like. I can go back to if the 4th guy that you add is someone that needs the ball in their hands in order to manufacture points, then yeah, I totally agree with that. But if you can add a 4th guy that can be just as dangerous as any one of those other guys in terms of being able to knock down open shots and attack closeouts, then I just don't get that. I don't think there's a cap on offense. I think you would want to be able to continue to send different guys out there and keep the kind of same potency that you have on offense at all times. I mean, that's what wakes teams up. So I mean, I don't know. I get it, because if that's the case, I mean, you could still play him with the bench lineup. I mean, if that's what you're worried about, like you can still have him out there with Kobe and Caruso and Tony Bradley, whoever you want to throw out there, you can still have him out there. So I don't understand that comment. But again, thanks for the comment, though, bro. I appreciate it.
What about this comment from Chris Gonzalez? Can we talk about how awful Larro is at fantasy football instead? Didn't you win your bracket?
Yes, I did. I am the champion. I am. I don't know what he is talking about, but I am the
Where's
champion
my cut?
of Barroom Network.
Where's my cut?
Hey, man. We could talk about that. We definitely talk about that.
maybe you can take your victory lap later on in the show if Chris is still around.
I have a question. Again, I had the screen up, so I couldn't see a couple of these comments. But Robert Covington, right? Let's say you do make the move. We're talking about Harrison Barnes right now. Let's say you do make the move for Harrison Barnes. Could you still get Robert Covington?
I think you could, but you would have to include Kobe in a trade. So let's say you put Patrick Williams and Derek Jones Jr. for Harrison Barnes. Robert Covington makes $12.5 million, I believe, this year. 12 something. You have to get within a certain percent. It has to be within 125%, I think, of that salary. So you really have to get like 10 million or so. So, Troy Brown Jr. makes 5.5, Kobe makes 5.89 or something like that. So you'd probably have to put both of those two together. Or if you could cobble together Troy Brown Jr. and, I don't know, Marco and like you like throw everyone else under the bus, or Javante and, Matt Thomas and all those guys, you may be able to get it. I will check during our show, and I'll get back to you on that if that's possible.
But just seeing what was out there. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we have, and one of the things I was thinking of is if we did trade for a guy like Harrison Barnes and Jerami Grant, and it required Patrick Williams and Derek Jones is a really good player for us. And so even though you're adding a starting 4 in that scenario, you'd be losing your backup 4. Yeah. And so would you be able to bring in a backup 4? And the other guy I think that would be a really nice kind of slide into that would be Torrey Craig, who makes, because we have a $5 million traded player exception, we could bring a player that makes $5 million or less into that exception for the rest of the year. And there's a few kind of buyout candidates, or Torrey Craig, there's some other ones that don't make a whole ton of money that may work for. So let me check. Let me check here with the Trailblazers if they wanted to give Robert Covington. Okay, Robert Covington makes $12.9 million, so it's almost 13. So you'd have to include, if you included Troy Brown Jr., Tony Bradley, Javonte Green, Alfonso McKinney. Let's see if that gets to it. But that's like a 4-for-1 trade, so probably not. Yeah, let's see. I don't think we can do that. No, and McKinney can't even be traded. So until March. I think you'd probably have to include Kobe then.
No, that's okay.
So that would be tough. Now, if we did do a Harrison Barnes or Jerami Grant trade, I think Robert Covington would be a really nice target for us. At that 12.9, you could put together Derek Jones Jr. and Troy Brown Jr. and you'd be there, and you could add that player. But so just something to consider. But Tony, that's a good suggestion. I love Robert Covington. I think if you put him in the right defensive role, he can really shine. I think Portland has him not always in the right role defensively, and I think they rely a little bit too much on him defensively as like an on-ball defender. He's much better as a roamer, help defender, a chaser. But yeah, anyways, that's definitely good comments.
How about that one?
So Serge Ibaka is another one. I was of the opinion earlier this season that he was done because he had back surgery, and anyways, he just didn't look good before. But he's had, if I remember, I think he's had a little stretch of games here that makes you think he's got a little bit left in the tank. So, this is, I don't have time to go into film tonight, but Serge Ibaka is the type of guy, I think, a big that can add a little bit offensively with his shooting.
Yeah.
That could kind of step in for 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, I think he could be a nice player at that kind of price point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love Serge. Serge is someone that I used to love watching a lot because I just loved his versatility defensively and offensively, being able to, I remember with 2014, 2015, he'd be able to take a couple dribbles in, pull up from mid-range. So it's like, I used to love watching Serge, man. So I wouldn't mind having Serge on this team, especially with what he can add to it.
Were he and DeMar, Nippy asked, were he and DeMar ever together in Toronto? I believe they were. Because didn't they trade Serge for Marc Gasol? Or how did they bring in Marc Gasol? I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure that they played together at some point in Toronto. I might be wrong. I don't know. I gotta look. You guys are asking really hard questions.
I know, right?
Getting killed here.
Hey, man, but
Do you have any more offensive clips? Or you want to talk about Harrison's defense?
So let me see something here. Oh, wrong one. So really, I mean, most of these, if not all of them, are offensively. But I can tell you just from watching some of the games of what I saw. So again, the game against the Miami Heat. Again, most of these games I watched, he was playing a 3, and he's definitely more of a 4 now. He's not. I don't think. I think his days as a small forward or, and obviously if you need it in a pinch, I think he can do it. But if you don't want to rely on him to be a 3 nowadays. I think you would much more rather him be a 4 now. But he's not really good at change of direction. So if he's guarding someone that like a Paul George, somebody that can give you a 1-2 and then step back, sidestep, whatever, he has trouble with that. There were some times where they had him as nail help. And he would help at the nail, and the guard or whoever it was that was attacking the nail shot it over to the wing. He just change of direction is just not his deal. He did well when he was playing with bigger guys. He was able to use some of his size and just be solid, force misses that way. But if he's got a guard, I don't know, like the Paul Georges of the world, he's definitely going to have a little bit of a problem with that. So it's just more so about, and also too, I just don't think I don't trust the defensive scheme that the Kings run. They switch a lot, very easy, soft switching. So he would also be put in situations that you wouldn't want him to be put in just because of the scheme. So you kind of want to see him in a different scheme as well, just see if some things mesh. Because honestly, I mean, if you're lying to yourself, if you thought DeMar DeRozan was going to be as serviceable, passable as he's been so far this season, so you just never know, man. Like these guys, when winning time is here and you want to win, like you do things that people didn't think you could do, and DeMar has definitely been surprising me, man. We were told dude dies on screens all the time, doesn't and dude is.
We watched film on it.
Yeah,
I mean, we watched him. Like the man was having a funeral every time he got screened. Just like fall over on the ground sometimes. Like just like literally die on screens.
Yeah,
He's hauling. He's hauling this season on. He's doing a lot better on both ends.
He wants to win. You can see it. So I mean, that's part of me. That's part of my evaluation too. Like when I evaluate, obviously you evaluate the skill, you evaluate what you see on the film, but at the same time, like you also want to see, what are they asking from him in the scheme? Would he fare differently in another scheme? That's what I would like to. That's what I like to think about as well.
For sure. And Nippy, thanks for checking for us. DeMar and Ibaka did play for a season and a half together. I was pretty sure. I was pretty confident that it was the case. But Damian Johnson, who suggested the Serge trade, Serge has size, defense, playoff, and championship experience, and can shoot threes. Yeah, I mean, he was a really good player. The only question for me was how much of it is still left in the tank for him after that back surgery, because back surgeries can be really, pretty critical, especially for bigs. So if he can continue playing well, I think he's definitely a candidate to look into before the trade deadline. Yeah,
I agree.
All right, so here's the issue for me with Harrison Barnes, because I agree with you offensively. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat, and adding more offense, especially at the caliber that Harrison Barnes provides and the seamless fit that he would provide, because we don't need to feed him a certain shot diet for him to be happy. He just goes within the flow of the offense, and we've already got guys that that control the offense in Zach and DeMar and sometimes Vooch, and that need certain shots created for them. Harrison Barnes isn't going to be that guy. He's just going to come in, he's going to make his shots, he's going to make good passes, good reads. He's going to play ball, right? He's just going to fit right in. So the chemistry that we've built, I think, would stay intact and be improved upon. And offensively, as you mentioned, we're fourth right now, but we may be able to vault to the first or second best offense in the league, which is pretty amazing. by the way. Just pretty amazing stuff. But to me, it's what I would have expected. Like, other than the Nets, I was like, who has a better offense than us, like in theory. Now, Trae Young and any 4 bums off the street could probably be a top 10 offense in the NBA because of how good Trae is at in the pick and roll. But other than that, I mean, it's I still think it's pretty impressive. But the rebounding, the defense, as Ferg says, is more of a need. So that's what Harrison, that's what we're about. You said, hey, if you put him on Paul George, he has to do a lot of change of directions, which is what a lot of those big forwards are doing. Giannis, KD, Paul George, Kawhi, LeBron, those guys all, Jason Tatum, I mean, the list goes on. Those guys all can change directions quickly and can really put you in a bind if you're not quick. And so that's where I think Harrison Barnes doesn't fit a need. Now, as you mentioned, he's not going to kill you on defense. He may be neutral most of the time. But I think for many fans, that's the key ingredient that this team is missing in their eyes. That we really need someone who can hold up against big forwards that handle the ball. Because guess what? If we go through the East, even if we end up with the first seed, we're going to have to face one of Milwaukee and Brooklyn, and probably Miami at some point too. If those are the top 4 seeds, we're going to play 2 of those teams at minimum to get to the finals. And guess what? Jimmy Butler is a pretty bruising forward. KD is the most unguardable slender man in the world. I was watching film of him tonight, looking up stuff for Jerami Grant. That man just does not. He's just silky smooth. It's just so hard to guard. And then Giannis, Giannis on the Bucks, and even Chris Middleton for what it's worth. Big forwards that can handle the ball. And I mean, Giannis just punishes people and just bulldozes them all the time. So you're never going to stop those guys, but being able to contain them, make their life harder, make them take tough shots, just get up, hand in their face. That stuff's really important for a playoff setting. So I think that's where the question comes in. All right, Harrison Barnes would be lovely to add to the team, but does he fit that need defensively? And does he upgrade your roster enough on both ends to justify trading Patrick Williams and Derek Jones, who's been a productive player for us? So that's the big question. I don't know the answer to it. But defensively, I think that's where the concern is for me. He's not going to kill you on defense. He's never been a bad defender. But as you said, he's a little bigger. He's a little heavier. He's not he's not super quick laterally. He'll be solid, but he's not gonna be out there changing the game on defense. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But I would just say to certain people to go watch Bobby Portis in the playoffs with the Bucks and look at what happens when you are inserted into a scheme that fits you. And I get it. I totally get it. But it don't matter who you guard. I mean, who you bring. It just, again, this is my way of thinking. This nobody else has to think that way. But Giannis, KD, all the names that we're naming, these are guys that are going to get their buckets. They're going to get their buckets. You can make it hard. I mean, PJ Tucker did his thing, but KD still was one toe away from ending that series. So it's like, yes, you want to worry about guarding those guys. You want to worry about containing those guys. But at the same time, you want to do what you do well, right? You don't want to change what you do well because you're worried about when a guy that's going to get his 30 plus every night. You want to do what you do well every single night at the highest ability. So if you feel that adding Jerami Grant is the guy that can, come in and, do the best he can against those guys, then sure enough, definitely do that. But I'm just that's your cup of tea. My cup of tea is I'd rather be able to if we have to be able to deploy different lineups and continue to show teams different looks. That's just the way I think about it.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm bringing up concerns because I know these are concerns I've had and concerns you've had, right? And we've talked about these things. And there's never perfection. As you mentioned, we talked today. Um, like there's no defensive scheme that is defenseless. Like there's no defensive scheme that has no weaknesses, right? Every
Mm-hmm.
scheme has a weakness. Every scheme you can exploit to some extent. The only thing you can improve, as I said, is your personnel
Yep.
that are running the scheme. That's what you can do. Improve the personnel and improve the execution of the scheme. And if you do those things, you can make almost any scheme work if you tailor it to whatever offense is running against you. But yeah, I mean, I think Harrison Barnes would be a really, really awesome addition, as you mentioned, given opposing defenses different looks, being able to always play 5-on-5, having 5 threats out there. Because let's take a look at a lineup, right? In a theoretical trade where we trade Patrick Williams and Derek Jones, and we bring in Harrison Barnes, your starting lineup is Lonzo, Zach, DeMar, Harrison Barnes, Vooch, right? All 5 of those guys can fill it up. Now, Lonzo's probably the one that fills it up the least, but he gets hot. And if he gets hot, he's going to hit 6 or 7 threes on that night. And even if he's not, as I mentioned today on Twitter, and somehow somebody managed to take offense to it anyway. But I said, even if Lonzo scores nothing, even if he has like a 1 for 7 night like he did the other night, he's still, as you said, rebounding, assists, steals, blocks, great passing, great defense, communication. Like the dude is just a winning player. He just impacts the game positively all the time. So those 5, and then your bench, Alex Caruso, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, and then you have Tony Bradley, Troy Brown Jr., Alfonso McKinney. Like those are kind of your next 3. I'm not sure which one would be in the rotation, and maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe it would just be Ayo, Kobe, and Caruso off the bench in that scenario. And have like an 8-man rotation. That's a really potent offensive lineup. I mean, that's a really potent offensive 8-man unit. I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but that I think that could defeat any defense in the NBA. Like that could win a series.
And even again, this is, I think this is just a fun exercise for us. But I think also too, like Pat, I mean not Pat, Jerami does some things that are offensively that are fun as well. And defensively, I mean, I think we've seen, in his Denver days, OKC days.
Don't steal my thunder here.
Oh yeah, my bad. But no, I think he's fun too, and I don't want to make it seem like if we got Jerami, I would be mad. It would just be like, I guess honestly, I think it's just like that mastermind in me of offensive, like your firepower that I would want. But I get it. Like you definitely want balance. You want to be able to throw different. Be able to guard those big wings, big forwards that have a little wiggle to them, definitely. But man, that's just where I'm at.
So listen, Ferg brings up a good point. He says he thinks that Pat will be back by playoff time. Now, here is what I don't want Bulls fans to do, and what I'm really, really worried will happen if we don't make a trade and Pat comes back in like March or April. Fans are going to expect Pat, after not playing basketball the entire year, to come in and be a positive contributor on the floor. And I just think that is a difficult ask for him, especially when he had wrist surgery. It's his off wrist, so he's still going to be able to do some things. He's still going to be able to, do conditioning and things. But it's not like he was a world beater before. I mean, he's a young player that has a lot of skills that need a lot of work, right? I mean, we can all admit that he has a lot of potential, but his actual on-court production on both ends so far has been pretty substandard, right, for an NBA player. He has not been a good NBA player yet. Now, I think you and I are probably higher on Pat than almost anyone else in the Bulls Twitter sphere. Because of the things that we've seen him do on both ends.
Yeah.
But a lot of what we want Pat to do is theoretical rather than reality right now. And so I think asking Pat, and I'm not saying Ferg is saying this, so
Yeah.
Ferg, please don't take offense, but you just reminded me of this. But I think if Pat comes back and he's working himself back into shape as we start the playoffs, and we're expecting, championship level, playoff level performances from him, I think that's going to be set up for failure. Now, and as Ferg says, maybe Pat only has to play defense, rebound, and hit open shots, plays role. But that's still a lot to ask. I mean, playing defense against Giannis and KD and those guys, I mean, it's a tough ask. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I wouldn't expect it from Pat this year. That would be my little blurb on that.
What I have to say to that is like, people say that like that's just so easy. Like you just have to play your role and you just have to hit shots and you have to rebound and play defense. That's all you got to do. Like that's just hard, man. Like especially for Pat. Like he's a guy that's still trying to find his way in the NFL, the NBA. And he's also
he's so lost. He's in the NFL now.
I know, but he's got to find his way, man. And for him to come back and play playoff minutes, like for instance, like with this team right now, we're not only thinking deep playoff run, we're also thinking this team has a chance to maybe fighting for a title. So Pat's going to come back and have to meet those standards. Like, and that's a tough ask. So just to say that that's all he has to do. Like, I mean, that's kind of underselling what he has to do. Like he has to come back, get his conditioning up, get used to playing NBA speed again, finding his role again, because he didn't even have his role down when he was healthy. He was still trying to find how he can affect things in an off ball role. So like he's gonna have to do all that when he comes back. So like that's tough. That's tough, man. So I don't know.
Hey man, just come back and guard Giannis. It's cool.
Right.
It's fine. Just guard Giannis.
Man.
I feel bad for anyone who has to do that. I'm just saying, NBA player or not. But Nippy had a good question here. What do you guys think about Cam Reddish? He's shown a little bit of both, able to create some offense and defend well on the perimeter. Neither to the extent of Barnes and Grant, but he is 22. No, I think Reddish has turned himself into a nice young player. I mean, he's still inconsistent, but he is a good defender. He's 6'8". I think I think the Hawks are going to
first round.
You want a first round pick or a better player back. So I'm not sure that the Bulls specifically would be in position to trade for him, just because I don't think we have what the Hawks really want. But no, Cam Reddish would be a wonderful wing forward to have on this team. I think he'd fit really well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jordan, what's up, Jordan? He's got a question here that he says, I'm late to the video, so I might have missed it. But his hot take is the Bulls don't need to trade for Grant or Barnes. They need legitimate size. So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, Jordan. Not about the Grant or Barnes thing, but the legitimate size thing. I agree that they need someone to play. They need a mobile 4 that can also play the 5 at points. What I don't think they need is a center. And I see a lot of Bulls fans saying we need to go out and get like Christian Wood or DeMarcus Cousins. Now, not DeMarcus Cousins on a 10-day, but like signing DeMarcus Cousins to be like a backup 5 for us long term. I don't think they need that kind of size. I think they need someone who can guard creation heavy front court players or like bigger wings, 3 to 5. They need someone that can guard 3 to 5. So a center most of the time can't guard 3 to 5. They can guard 5s and like occasional slow footed 4s. I think we need someone who can guard from 3 to 5. 4s specifically, but can get out in the perimeter and guard a little bit, contain some dribble penetration, and then at the 5, I think they should be able to kind of hold their own in some small ball lineups. That's just my opinion. So that's my only pushback. But I don't know if the Bulls should trade for Grant or Barnes. I mean, that's a good question. That's why we're here asking it tonight and looking over this film. But Jordan, shout out, man. One of the best Bulls fans you'll ever see and interact with. Love you, bro.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Chris, man. I don't think everything you just said. I'll just leave it at that.
So, well, now Jordan says, hey, we can get a big 4 and a legitimate backup 5. Hey, that's fine. Isaiah Hartenstein, come on down.
Right.
He's having a nice time with the Clippers right now. Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind that if we got both, but I think the bigger need is the 4. But good comment there.
So Skokes brings up Okongwu, and I don't think they would. I don't think they would get rid of him. I think they love that guy, man. So
yeah, I think they're pretty high on him.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would love him. I would love him, but yeah.
Mr. MDJ, based your analysis, I think Robert Covington or someone like him is really what the Bulls need. If Kobe keeps scoring like this, they just need a defensive 3-4 who should be able to hit shots in the corner. Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, but Covington, I think, would be a really nice piece. I don't think he provides quite as much as Grant or Barnes do in this situation, but he also probably wouldn't cost, he wouldn't cost Patrick Williams, most likely. So
yeah,
definitely a candidate that is a worthy one. Yeah, so Jordan says you might prefer to keep Pat and hit the buyout market or trade for guys like Torrey Craig. Yeah, we brought up Torrey Craig a little bit earlier. I think he would be a perfect buy low candidate for that kind of role for sure. All right, have we hit our limit on Harrison Barnes? If anyone in the comments has more questions, or if Larro, if you got anything else on
Barnes? I think clearly the chat is either no Harrison, yes Jerami, or no to either of them. So yeah, I lose this round.
I don't think it's not a competition. No, I think yeah, and I guess I'll try and give my take at the end of this as to whether I think we should trade for them at all or not. But let's talk about Jerami Grant for a minute here. So Jerami Grant, and let's go over this real quick. Harrison Barnes, I think, weighs about 230, and he's 6'8".
Mm-hmm.
Jerami Grant, I think, weighs a little bit less. I think he's like 215, 220-ish, if I remember right. He's 6'9", so he's a little bit taller, and he's got a 7'3" wingspan. So he really has some great physical tools on the defensive end. So, all right, let me bring up. So you got the first clip here. All right, so the question of the day is: can he guard KD and can he guard Giannis? So my first two clips here are. My first clip here is of him guarding Kevin Durant. No one can guard Kevin Durant. Let me just say that up front. Nobody can guard Kevin Durant. What you can do to Kevin Durant is get in his face, make him uncomfortable, and then you pray that he misses the shot. That is the best the best Kevin Durant defense you can have. So that being said, here's what Jerami Grant gets matched up here. You got Patty Mills at the top of the key. He passes to Kevin Durant on the left elbow. And Jerami Grant thought he was coming up to set a screen. So if you go back here real quick. So Kevin Durant comes up like he's going to set a screen on the right side. I think it's Corey Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So Jerami Grant's kind of shadowing him on the left side. He catches the ball on the left elbow here. Jerami Grant is able. Now he's out. Now you can see he's beat right now based on where Kevin Durant is. He's able to move laterally into Kevin Durant, move with him, and just get a hand right up in his face and forces a tough little turnaround fadeaway. He misses that shot. It was one of only like 3 shots he missed that entire game. But he has the size and the quickness to guard a guy like Kevin Durant. And very, very few people in the NBA do have that at that kind of a level and are good players at the same time. So, yeah.
Oh my God! Like, look at. Hold on, 1 second. Like, dude is not even. He's not even left like the ground fully, and his arms are like at the ball. That's crazy.
That's crazy. That's why. Because Kevin Durant and Giannis specifically are very, very long-limbed individuals and allows them to get shots off that are really hard to guard. You have the same thing with like Kristaps Porzingis because he's so freaking tall. Like no one can really contest his shot. Jerami Grant can. He is tall enough to contest that shot because of not only his length but his leaping ability. Now here he doesn't leap very, very far, but he's got that size. He's got that length, and he can just bother Kevin enough, to just disrupt his rhythm. And that can be the difference between victory and defeat sometimes in a game is that rhythm. Or toe, the size of your toe can also be the difference, as you know from last year. All right, so this next clip here is guarding Giannis and strips him on a fast break. So listen, I watched every possession that Giannis scored or attempted to shoot this season. Jerami Grant guarded him several times, but every time Giannis saw that Jerami Grant was guarding him, he pulled up for a three every single time. He guarded him like 15 times. 14 of those times, he pulled up for a three. The only time that I could find a clip of him guarding Jerami Grant on like something to the basket was here in transition. So Giannis gets the ball in transition, and he goes into his little Euro step. So he gets right to the nail, comes up the Euro step. Jerami Grant has the length and the quickness to stay in front of him and strip that ball as he goes up for layup and does not get called for a foul. So just a little, it's a little simple clip, but he has guarded both of those people in the past and done about as admirably as you can on either of them. So that, I think, is the central question to why you would trade for Jerami Grant in the first place, is to guard guys like KD and Giannis. And there's no one that can guard them really, really effectively. But I think Grant is up there with, some of the best some of the best candidates you can put out on the floor to guard those guys. Let's see. All right, so I love this little sequence here. This is when they played the Lakers. Jerami Grant does this little one dribble pull up, makes it. So this is, if you want to pause it real quick, actually, and go back to that clip. So Jerami Grant this year, he has a much bigger role on the Detroit Pistons than he did in his previous stops. And so if I want to say, okay, so his usage in the last 2 years, this year it's 25.9%. The year before it was 27%. The 3 years previous in Denver and OKC, it was like sub 15% usage. So his shot diet has changed significantly since he got to Detroit because he's the man in Detroit. And that was one of the reasons he went to Detroit, because he got the same offer from Denver that he did from the Pistons. But he wanted to kind of expand his offensive game, and he has. So he has developed an isolation game, a pull-up game that he didn't really display as much before. So I think one of the caveats, and I'll talk about this later, one of the caveats of him coming here is that his role on offense is going to change pretty significantly from what it is right now, because I don't think the Bulls need him to run isolation or do pull-ups because they got DeMar and Zach doing that kind of stuff. His role is going to be much more shooting threes, diving for cuts at the basket, like playing the Javonte Green role, but at a much higher level on offense, in my opinion. But he does have the capability to create his own shot in a pinch. And he's not super effective as an isolation scorer in general, but it's the Pistons. So I wouldn't expect that. But he does have that capability. He can create his own shot, and he can be effective at it at times. But anyways, this little sequence here is like 2 plays on offense and 2 plays on defense. Just kind of gives you the whole Jerami Grant experience. What I really want people to focus on as they're watching this is him defensively and the communication. You can see him. You can't hear it because I don't have the audio, but you can watch him talking a lot on defense and directing the defense. And that's something I think is really impressive here as he kind of helms the defense in the front court as a low man. So yeah, if you want to just run through this clip and play it again. So he pulls up one dribble pull up here over DeAndre Jordan. Now here he is in transition. You can hear him, like you see him yelling at guys. Now he's here. DeAndre goes to post him up, and then he also deters that shot at the rim. Comes out again, digs at the elbow here, and then they're forced to take a tough shot. And he comes over and he gets over his defender and slaps that ball out for transition bucket, which he then actually is going to shoot a 3, but gets it down to Isaiah Stewart down low on a fake shot. Gets that pass down. Here it comes down again on defense. He's guarding down low. And then watch him box out here for this rebound. Once he eventually takes a shot. I couldn't get this clip. Yeah, Anthony Davis doing ISO stuff for 10 seconds and then giving it up. Gets this rebound, and now watch, he'll lead the break here, and he pulls up for this transition 3 splash. So that little clip right there, I thought was really kind of what Jerami Grant is good at. He shoots more above the break threes than he does corner threes, which I think will work well anytime that Vooch is not on the floor. Vooch is also an above the break 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
But Zach, Lonzo, Caruso, Kobe, all those guys can shoot in the corner. Jerami can shoot in the corner, but when he's on the court with Vooch, I think you'll probably see Jerami Grant more on the wings or in the corner, or maybe playing the dunker spot. When Vooch is not on the floor, I think Jerami can play small ball 5. He could pop out for those threes, and he's actually pretty effective. So over the last couple of years, he has shot. So this year he's shooting 35% on all threes, but non-corner threes he's shooting 38%. Same the year before, he shot 40% non-corner threes 2 years ago, 39% 3 years ago, 38% 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. So the last 4 years he has shot 40% overall, 38% overall, 35 and 35. So the through 35s are in Detroit. It's gone down because I think he has a more difficult role, a bigger offensive role. But I think a lot of people think he's not a good shooter. I would disagree. I think he's not a super good corner 3 shooter, but overall from 3, I think he's been pretty consistent. He takes about, let me see, I think it's 3.5. Yeah, when he was in OKC in Denver, he took about 3.5 threes a game, and he shot them at almost 40% and 39% those 2 years. So pretty decent. He's not high volume, but he's definitely going to get a lot more credibility on the offensive end than Javonte or DJ will. So anyways, if you have any comments on that clip, but I just liked his defensive communication. I liked the boxing out. And I just thought on that first play, he prevented he prevented shots at the rim on a couple different levels. So I just thought that was emblematic of what he does on the defensive end. And then I've got another clip after that. But if you have anything here, and I got to check comments too.
Yeah, no, I think that was actually a really great clip. I like you said, it really showed everything that he can bring to the team, just in that like really nice sequence. The communication on the backside, defensively, the long rangy body, being able to get over to help in the pick and roll, being able to just move around and be somebody that you can switch with if you want to switch everything. You can switch everything with Jerami. So yeah, man, that was a really good clip. I mean,
just to get a couple comments here. There's a mention, Mr. MDJ, Jerami Grant does not board well enough. So that actually in Detroit has been an issue for him. His rebounding numbers have not been super impressive. So I've looked at some of the film that some of the Detroit people actually went through, and I looked at it. I think a lot of it is it's definitely not any physical limitation. I think it's just effort and focus. So it's one of those things, Larro, as you said, when you're on the championship team or you have those aspirations, I think your focus is better and you really want to win. So I'm not super concerned about it, although I doubt he's going to help us with our rebounding. I think we're in the mid-20s in rebounding percentage right now as a team, which is not super great, obviously. And that's definitely one area that he's not going to really help at, I would say. Okay, so here's what I am most excited about with Jerami Grant is these next 2 clips. So if you want to play these clips, so this is Jerami Grant and the Pistons playing the Pelicans. Jerami is on the weak side. He blocks a dunk attempt from Jonas Valanciunas coming from the weak side. So that weak side rim protection where he comes over from that side and just stonewalls him. I mean, Jonas does this little move. He should have an open dunk. And that for almost anyone else in the league trying to guard that would just get dunked on. But Jerami has the length and the size and the quickness and that leaping ability. And here he goes. You have a guard coming off a little pick here. I think it was. Let's see the second clip. Guard coming off a screen, and he comes for a layup, and Jerami comes all the way over from that weak side and just sends it into the third row. So, okay, it doesn't hit the third row, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean, yeah.
But his weak side rim protection is what I hope is the thing I hope for Patrick Williams one day. Now, we've seen little flashes of Pat Williams doing that, but Jerami Grant has been doing that his whole career.
Yeah.
His shot blocking has been really, really good. Trying to find his stats here. His block percentage for his career is over 2%. And in certain parts of his career has been over 3% and once over 5%, which is insane block percentage. And his steal percentage is pretty good. It's 1.5% this year. Yeah, and his block percentage this year is 1.8%. But he's also, I think, he's playing a little bit more kind of away from the basket this year in some instances. So I think that would be a really, really big help to us defensively. Here's why. The Bulls allow the most shots at the rim in the entire league out of any team. They are 30th. And even though opponents aren't shooting a great percentage there, because we've got guys like Derek Jones and Javonte Green and Io, and that can kind of rotate on the weak side and come up and block shots or deter people at the rim, because we've got Vooch playing out higher up in the coverage. That's still a weakness. It's still difficult to maintain that kind of. I mean, shots at the rim are the most efficient shot in basketball, basically, right? So it's really difficult to have an elite defense when you allow that many shots at the rim. So having a guy like Jerami Grant be able to provide rim protection and that deterrence, because I think he'll be a deterrent. If people know he's going to rotate over from the weak side to block their shot, the guards aren't going to try those layups, and the bigs may pass out. And instead of going for the dunk. So I think that's a really important aspect of his defense is that weak side rim protection. What do you think?
No, I think that's, for me, when I think about Jerami Grant, that's one of the first things I think about is weak side rim protection. I think when we played them earlier in the season, like he was definitely wiping some stuff off the glass from the weak side. So that's definitely something you think about. You think about a guy that can step behind the 3-point line and knock down 3 balls defensively is definitely, especially for this team, defensively is like the biggest thing you think about with, for him. And he's somebody that can come in and fill that void, guys do a really good job. They compete, Javonte, Caruso, and Lonzo, they all compete against the bigger guys. I mean, Lonzo had to guard Julius Randle and did a pretty good job. But it's just you kind of don't want to have to do that if you don't have to. And adding a guy like Jerami would allow you to not have to depend on Lonzo to do that, and Caruso to guard those bigger guys.
And in thinking of some of the playoff matchups, if we play the Bucks, for example, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, I would want Caruso and Lonzo respectively on those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then Giannis, I'd want a guy like Jerami Grant. Otherwise, like, who's going to guard Giannis or who's going to guard Middleton or Drew? In those situations, like, those are 3 guys that you really need to guard. Same thing with Brooklyn. You got Kyrie Irving for away games, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. We would have 3 guys who would match up really, really well with all 3 of those guys. I think, we've seen Caruso take Harden's lunch over and over again. Lonzo, I think, can hang defensively with either of those 2 guards in spurts. And then the other team I think about is the Miami Heat. You've got Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. I think, having a guy like Jerami Grant really just gives you more defensive options. And the other thing is, we really don't have a small ball 5 in this lineup. I know Derek Jones Jr. has done an admirable job at that. But I think it would unlock another gear for us defensively to have a guy like Jerami Grant that you could play as a small ball 5. And because his rim protection is so good, as a weak side rim protector, I think he could step into that role as a small ball five in many instances in the regular season, and I think in pinches in the playoff. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about for Jerami Grant defensively. Offensively, so here's the caveat, and here's the worry of other people I've talked to around the league, or fans of the teams I've talked to, and the worries they have about Jerami Grant are about his role acceptance. So I think that's the thing, because as I mentioned early on, his shot diet is going to be very, very different here than it is in Detroit currently. And if that's going to be a problem for him, then it's probably not worth trading for him. If he doesn't seem like he wants to fit on the offensive end, if he's not okay standing in the corner sometimes or cutting or running off screens, then maybe that isn't the right fit. But he is a guy that if he's on the floor, even if he's playing a Javonte Green style role as far as his shot diet is concerned, he is a guy you cannot ignore, right? He can put up 20 points, right? He can put up buckets. Like, I think he can still be a positive impactor on the offensive end, even though he's not Harrison Barnes level shooting and scoring. I really think that that Jerami Grant would be a fine person on the offensive end, with the caveat that we don't have to create shots for him, like you were saying in the beginning, right? Harrison Barnes you don't need to feed him certain looks. As long as Jerami is okay taking a step back on the offensive end, I think it can fit really well. Now, here's a tweet that Ricky sent out today that I thought was really interesting. He thought that the Bulls were probably one piece away. He says, if only there was an available 4/5 who stands 6'9" with a 6'7" or a 7'3" wingspan and can say he's played for Mark Eversley in Philly, played for Billy Donovan in OKC, played for Arturas Karnisovas in Denver, and is literally Horace Grant's nephew. And so, like, my opinion is, if there's any team that can get Jerami Grant to buy in to his role on this team, I think it would be the Chicago Bulls, because of those connections that he's had basically in every stop of his career. He's got someone on the Chicago Bulls that he can talk to, that he can relate to. So I don't know what you think about that, but I think the offensive role acceptance is probably a smaller issue than a lot of people are thinking. But if it's true, and that is an issue, I think it's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, no. And part of that is too, what you just said is, like, they'll know. AK,
yeah,
Mark Eversley, they'll know if he's going to be the guy that wants to take that step back.
yeah.
And
Thank you, Ferg.
And I think earlier in the show, I can't remember who it was that commented, but you don't want to mess up the chemistry. So you just don't want to bring guys that come here and they want to be the reason why you win a championship, instead of it should be a team effort getting that championship kind of deal. So it's a fine line, like, you want to make sure that he wants to take a step back, because you got DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine on this team, and Vucevic, who all need those touches more than than him. If he's okay, like you said, almost playing like that upgraded, like he evolved, that Javonte evolved. You know what I mean? Like, that would be Javonte, right? You want him to. Jerami. You want him to be, if Javonte is the Crystal Light, Jeremy's the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? So so it's like you want that, but yeah, man. Like I said, I just thought, like, going into this show, instead of us just agreeing on a prospect, like, just seeing it from both sides of the spectrum. So Jerami is definitely a guy that I respect, and I wouldn't mind having him on this team either, man. Like, he's definitely, like you said, he feels that weak side rim protection. Just if you want to play Vooch even higher in it, you know what I mean? Like, you could do that with a guy like Jerami, and
yeah.
So it's man. I totally agree. I totally agree with you.
So tell me then, why aren't you sold on Jerami Grant? Why
I
would you?
think
Because I think you prefer Harrison Barnes over
I
Jeremy Grant
I
in this
do.
scenario.
I am. I think the more that we've been doing this show, I think we start to see. I think I'm
Are you
starting to
getting
see
bucket
how they
pilled?
go. Yeah, I'm a guy that believes like you know I would like yes you got to stop guys. You have to stop guys. You have to be able to contest, no doubt. But like at the end of the day, like you got to be able to put the ball in the basket different ways. Like Zach LaVine is a dog, DeMar DeRozan, dog. But what's going to happen if what happens if they both have off games? Like you got to be able to pivot, and that may not happen a lot, but like you got to be able to have that in your back pocket where like, okay, Zach, you're not feeling it tonight. Okay, well let's run some double drag, with Harrison Barnes. Let's run some Chicago action with Harrison Barnes coming off screens. But like it's just not I don't know, man. That's just how I am, man. Like I'd rather go into go into a series knowing that like we can run these different things. Like Jeremy Grant does these. It's almost like an opposite end. Like you could do different things with Jeremy on the defensive end. You could do different things with our Harrison Barnes on the offensive end. I mean, teams are going to like that. That's why I say I want to see the Bulls right now against the Bucks because it's almost gonna. I'm pretty sure Bud and Billy are gonna treat it like a playoff game. You're gonna see different things. You're gonna maybe see some different sets from the Bulls, and you'll get a true test of what both teams will look like if they're healthy, hopefully full strength. And that's just what I'm looking at it as.
I get it, and I agree with you in a lot of aspects. I think for me, I've always enjoyed great defense more than great offense. Just
That's
from a
what I meant because I got no
yeah,
I feel it. You know what I mean? I would
I
feel it.
love it. And for me personally, when I play, if you ask me, would you rather get a block shot or drain a three? I'd block shot all day long because it's
Mm,
demoralizing.
mm.
Because when a guy like me, when a guy that looks like me blocks your shot, you're having a bad day, and you're like the rest of the game, you're like, man, this sucks. This white kid just blocked my shot.
This
If you
guy,
drain a three, it's like whatever. He can shoot whatever. But
my
from a
yeah.
from a Bulls perspective, here's why I would say the defense is more important. Number one, just to have a chance of stopping those guys, specifically the guys that we're going to have to face in the playoffs. And second, the Bulls are one of the best transition teams in the league. And for me, if you want to put the ball in the bucket, get it in transition. And the way you can get transition is by making stops on that end. If you make stops, you get steals, you get blocks, you stonewall some guy and they force him to take a tough shot, which the Bulls have been doing this year. It fuels that transition game and makes the buckets. I mean, their buckets are so much easier to get in transition than a set half court offense. And so for me, I agree with you that offensively you want to put the ball in the basket, but I think the team has enough scores in the half court to do it, but doesn't have the defensive the defensive chops to stop those top guys. And I think that having those guys can make the difference and kind of fuel that transition game further. Now I know transition is not as effective in the playoffs, usually because everyone slows down, everyone tries to get into half court sets, but those plays that can happen, those transition buckets can be really, really effective and really, really important to your game. Now the Bulls have a great half court offense. They didn't at the beginning of the year. It's really come along. It's become one of the best half court offenses in the league. But I really think that I just prefer the defensive end, and so Jeremy Grant speaks to me a little bit more than Harrison Barnes. Now I would be fine with either of them or neither of them. Like if it really comes down to it, I trust AK to do the research, the due diligence, and to find the best deal, or
Mm-hmm,
to realize that the best deal is to not make a deal.
mm-hmm.
But so just from my personal preference, I would think that Jeremy Grant fits the bill a little bit more if he buys into the offensive end. That's the
Yeah.
caveat. That's the caveat for me.
And to give my version of the demoralizing, what I love as well is when a defense is rotating like crazy. They're getting to where they need to be, but they just can't make that one rotation, and it's a knockdown, baby. That's what I love too, when the defense is just working their butts off and they just can't get to that other person they need to get to. So but again, like
Jordan's killing me, man. Jordan's cracking me up out here. There's 5
man,
offenses out there.
I can look, let me tell you something, Jay. We can go to the gym and I'll still give you baskets right now, brother. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We can do it. But no, man, you know I'll mess with you though, Jay. But no, yeah, man, that's just but you know how it is, man. Like it's just different. It's just everybody has a different way of going about it, man. And I've obviously defense, I'm not totally like, man, hey, let's find, let's sign like 5 bucket getters. But I'm saying that, like, you already
Small
have
Crawford, baby, come on down.
No, but like like I know we have like the way this defense is built is like, usually you have like a big man, like we talked about. Usually the big man is like the engine, to your defense. But like Caruso and Lonzo are those guys, and everybody else just does their role. They do their thing, they make the right rotation when they need to make the right rotation. And honestly, I'm just like, I guess I'm confident, in the defensive ability that this team has already. And I just would like to add to the other side of the floor. That's just me, because I think like Kobe is balling. But we can't, like, if we're being realistic, we can't expect Kobe to score at the clip that he's been scoring all the time. So just being able to, because once you bring Kobe out there, right, off that bench, there's not really somebody else that can be with those guys. And yeah, you can stagger, Zach and guys like that. But I just think adding another guy like Harrison, just, again, I've already said it, it just adds a whole nother gear to this offense. Whether you want to give DeMar a little bit more of a break, you want to give Zach a little bit more of a break, you can do all those things. So that's just where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Hey, Jordan brings up an interesting question here. Is there any way we can get Grant or Barnes without trading Pat? Because could you imagine both of them? I would say no. I don't think. But here's why. I think that other teams are going to have better offers for Jerami Grant if we don't include Patrick Williams. So I think if we get Jerami Grant, we're going to have to include him. And I think the package to me is Jerami Grant and Derek Jones Jr. for either of those guys. It matches the salaries. You got an expiring contract with Derek Jones going out. And to me, I don't think either of those guys are worth adding a first round pick to that deal. I think Patrick Williams is a good enough prospect by himself. And Derek Jones is a productive, good player on a good contract that I think those assets match up pretty well. Now, a lot of it depends on how you feel about Patrick Williams, but I know Detroit specifically was very high on Patrick Williams and we're going to draft him 7th and was looking for trade packages to get to 3rd because they knew the Bulls were going to draft him. So I think specifically for Detroit, Patrick Williams is the prize for them in that sort of trade scenario.
Yeah. I agree.
Luis, what's up, Luis? Long time no see.
Seriously.
He says Kobe's proving me wrong. Yeah, I thought he would be inconsistent when he came back. I didn't think he'd be super good or super bad overall. I just thought he'd be really inconsistent at first because he hadn't played basketball in 6 months, and he did. I mean, the first couple of games were rough. He's had some rough stretches, but he's really coming along. But as you said, Larro, it's not like he's going to be scoring like this all the time. But I do think he's made some defensive strides. I think his playmaking has improved. I think he's doing a lot of good things. He's had a good assist to turnover ratio for even last season. He was doing really well on that. But I think his playmaking has improved even further, and his confidence. You can just see the swagger that he plays with on the floor, and him and Io together specifically. Yeah. I really like that. I've really liked that pairing.
And also too, to go along with the assist to turnover ratio stuff, like if you go back to like a lot of his assists last season, there was a lot of like dump offs, a lot of come off, dump, pass it back to the popper. But like now you're seeing him like attack closeouts, get downhill, skip to the other side of the floor,
Yeah.
and like the different types of passes, the different types of passing reads that he's making. That's the difference in his passing this year. Like it's just I know last season people were worried about, because Billy came in and AK came in and talking about the development staff, and we felt like Pat didn't grow, felt like Kobe didn't really grow that much, and
Yeah.
whoa, that's supposed to be their thing. They're not developing. Well, something I brought up and I think we both brought it up on here is that like there was no training camp, there was no, there was no practices as much as it was. Like being able to come in and have a training camp with these guys and be able to do what they need to do in terms of watch film and work on the things they need to work on. You can see it. I mean, with Io, man. I mean, I love Io, and I did think he could have made some impact early in the season, but I didn't think it would be like this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is this is more than what I thought. And I think you just have to give some props to Billy and his coaching staff.
Yeah.
They're doing a really, really good job.
They really are. I mean, I've had zero complaints about the rotations this year. Like
Mm,
none. I had a lot last year.
yeah.
I mean, I think he's just doing a good job. I know we've had some I know we've wanted more on the offensive sets sometimes from him early on this year, but the offense is cooking. I mean, they're just doing a good job. And Luis actually brings up a good question here that we can address real quickly, which is if we don't trade Pat, if we don't get these guys, do we trade Kobe for anybody? And if so, where do we get some of that scoring punch back off the bench? And that's my concern
Hmm.
is if we trade Kobe, we need someone like Kobe,
Yeah.
and Kobe makes under $6 million this year. We're, and we're, I think we're 10 point something million under the hard cap, which is like we cannot go above it because we've done all those sign and trades. Um, we don't have a whole ton of wiggle room to bring in a higher paid scorer. So I think it's going to be really difficult to find somebody that's giving you Kobe's production at Kobe's price.
Yeah.
So I would lean probably not. I don't think we should trade Kobe at this point just because of that dynamic. I'm just not sure if there's anything in the market that's going to be worth justifying. Now, if it's unless it's like bringing a star back somehow, I just
Yeah.
don't see it. I just don't see it. What about you?
No, man. I'm right along with you, man. I think Kobe. I think somebody commented on my tweet and said, "Man, I'm not falling for this anymore. Kobe's done this before, and then he falls back to what he has done in the past." And I just have to just say that, like, if you're not truly seeing what Kobe's doing, then you're saying that. That's the type of tweet you're sending because you're not really watching how he's getting his baskets and how he's getting his assists. When he's the low man as in the pick and roll situation on defense, how he's rotating and pre-rotating, his head's on a swivel, how he's giving it effort. Yeah, he's probably still not the best on ball defender, but you can see he's giving effort. He's trying to improve on that end. And
His screen
um,
navigation's gotten better too.
yeah, yeah,
Caruso's teaching everybody. He got
yeah,
Lonzo to
man,
get screens, got Demar around screens, getting Zach around screens. Now Kobe.
yeah.
Telling you,
It,
Caruso's the magician here.
that's part of like bringing in great vets and bringing in winning players.
Yeah,
Because I think that's a part of it too, right? Like you bring in winning players to guys like Kobe and Zach that they want to win, but for the most part they haven't been a part of a winning team, so they don't know how to win.
yeah,
So bringing in guys like Caruso and Demar that have been at the pinnacle, and obviously not, for Demar he had to run into LeBron a lot, but they understand what it takes to win. Wanting to win is different than actually doing what it takes to win. You know what I mean? So it's like what I told my kids today. Like, you if you want to win, you truly do everything possible to win. If your screen navigation is not good, you're going to make you're gonna try to make that happen, right? Because you want to win, you want to be a part of a winning team. So it's good stuff. It's beautiful stuff. Just as a Bulls fan, man, how can't you be happy right now? Like who? Like at the beginning of the season, like obviously you had optimism, right? But truly, who thought we were going to be in this situation where we're like, you know what? Who should we have? Harrison Barnes or Jeremy Grant? You know, we don't need them.
Larro,
We don't need.
listen to the sentence. If I told you 2 years ago that Harrison Barnes was the missing piece for a DeMar DeRozan-led championship title team on the Chicago Bulls, you would have put me in an insane asylum. If you would have told me 6 months ago that same sentence, you would have put me in an insane asylum. But that's the reality now is Harrison Barnes and Jeremy Grant might be the missing piece for a DeMar DeRozan MVP-led championship title run this season. It is wild what Acme has done with this roster in a year and a half.
Like we've gone, Chris, we've gone from just in the season where we were like, man, we got to get better at finishing games. We're losing games and we should win, to being like, we're not winning the games the right way.
I'm mad that they're not winning the games by enough points. Like this pisses me off this year. The thing I'm most mad about this year is that the Bulls win these games by 20 or 15, and then they sit their guys for the last 2 minutes. And in that 2-minute span, the other team goes on like a 10-0 run. And then all of a sudden, like the Wizards did it last night, we were winning that game by 19 points. It was 130 to 111 with two and change to go. And then Billy said all his guys, and they scored 11 straight points. And that was an 8-point margin. And I know all my friends that make fun of me for this, like Mark K and Ricky and Jason, those guys, but they're going to make fun of me for this. But it's true. Like, that's the dumb thing I'm mad about this year, because I don't have anything really legitimate to be mad about. Like, it's just a freaking great team. I'm mad that they're not winning by enough. Okay, let me get to some comments. There's some questions here before we sign off. Holy Samurai Jerusalem, thanks for joining us, man. Says, I know Cleveland has been balling out this year, but is there any chance that a Kevin Love buyout happens? I would say probably not. Maybe yeah, he's been a great like 6-man of the year candidate for them. So I would say probably not, because of how good he's doing, and honestly how long Cleveland waited. They should have traded him years ago. They never did. Yeah. So I think it's really highly unlikely that they do that. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Kevin, like you said, Kevin's been playing well. He's shooting the ball well. He's not throwing the ball at his teammates. You know, he's playing team. You know, he's playing well. You know, but I don't think I don't think so.
Yeah, let's see. Jordan says, do you guys think Dorian Finney-Smith or Miles Bridges are unattainable? I feel like they're untouchables on their respective teams. What do you think? Yeah, I agree. I think there's no way.
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. 100%.
Oh, what about Miles Turner? Luis Villasenor says, what about Miles Turner? Have you guys talked about him yet? How does he compare to Harrison Barnes? So I kind of touched on this earlier, but Miles Turner is definitely a center to me. And although he can shoot pretty well, I think on defense, he's going to be a center. So I don't think he solves our problem of guarding big forwards. I mean, obviously, Miles Turner would be great to have. I do think other teams are going to be able to outbid us on him, and I think he's going to have a much better role on another team. So that's my feeling on Miles Turner. But he's a great player. I just don't think the circumstances are right for him to come here.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I don't think he shoots it well enough to play the role he wants to play. But yeah, that's just what I think. So
Nippy brings up the question of the night here, which is basically, is it worth trading Pat Williams? And he says, Pat's values might be at the lowest it's been, and usually trading guys at their lowest point is not a smart move. So what do you think about that?
No, I think he hit on a point where he said that you don't want to trade him at the lowest point. think that's a good point because obviously, teams have they see potential in Pat, but like at this point, Pat hasn't done what the theorized version of what we think of him. He hasn't met that yet, and
Yeah.
I mean, right now probably wouldn't be the best time to trade him, but if those trades get you a Jerami Grant or a Harrison Barnes, I mean, it's
Yeah.
you kind of have to think about it.
Yeah. So, because here's the thought process for me is, okay, what do we hope Pat Williams becomes?
Mhm.
Is he as good as Jerami Grant is in 3 years? What if he turns out to be Jeff Green, who's a good player, but
Mhm.
a journeyman role player, not a
Yeah.
star? And so I think Nippy is right that you don't want to trade someone at their lowest value. I brought up the wrong thing. But is it his lowest value? Is he at his lowest value? As Larro said, a lot of teams see potential in him, right? He hasn't played enough games yet for people to be convinced one way or the other. And so there's still kind of that shiny, like unknown quality about him. If let's say he had played this whole year and he just stunk all year, he just didn't, like, let's just say he played as good or worse than last year, right? And last year was like he showed flashes, but he
Yeah.
was not a productive NBA player in any sense of the word, right? He's not like a replacement level player. Like, he's definitely rookie, right?
Yeah.
Rookie level production, tantalizing talents and flashes here and there, but not the consistent guy that we hope he will become one day. So that's what you got to ask yourself: is it at his lowest value? Because I think it's not. And I think it could be a lot lower if he turns out he continues to play the way he's been playing. I think teams will be less and less enamored with him over the next 2 years. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse that he's out this year, because we can't answer that question.
Yeah.
But also makes it much harder to trade him, because you're like, what if he turns out like Jerami Grant in 3 years? And so that's the other thing is, okay, well, if he turns out like Jerami Grant or Harrison Barnes or some better version of those two guys, or somewhere approaching the Kawhi level comps that have been crazy since the beginning. Okay, does that fit the timeline of this team? Is the second question I ask.
Yeah.
When will the actualized version of Pat be useful to this team, and in what capacity? And so, if right now we are a championship contender or right approaching that status, is Pat going to contribute to that? And if not, is he going to be able to contribute to that within the timeline of that championship? And to me, that's either this year or next year, right? Because Vooch's contract is up at the end of next year. Plus, Zach is getting a huge payday at the end of this year with his new contract. He's probably going to make an All-NBA team at this point, which means he's going to get the Supermax. And yeah, having a guy like Pat be a guy like Pat for those next few years is not going to be very helpful to us.
Yeah.
He has to be a much better version of himself than he is right now to be really useful. So that's the context I think you have to look at a trade. Is he going to be the version of the player that's going to help you reach a championship in that time frame? And if not, can you trade him for a player that will? And I think that's why this is such a raging debate amongst Bulls fans, is because the two guys we just spent the last 2 hours talking about will raise our ceiling. Will they raise our ceiling enough? I think that's debatable. But there's two guys that could be available. I think Jerami Grant for sure is available. Harrison Barnes might be available.
Yeah.
And Jerami Grant specifically is available, and probably available for Pat in a trade.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's important to ask that question and see if it makes sense, because I think it can make sense. I don't know if I would go that route, but I definitely see the logic behind it.
I think too, to go along with what you just said, is another part to think about when you think about the Pat trade is can you depend on DeMar DeRozan to play at this type of level next season? And this is why people are thinking about, hey, it might be worth trading Pat, because if if you can bring in somebody to take this team to another level, to go along with the way DeMar DeRozan is playing this season, you have to entertain it, because championships or competing for a championship is not promised. And expecting a 32-year-old, 32, right? He's 32 this year, or 30, 31?
32.
32. Like, expecting him to play at this level next season is that's playing with fire, man. Like,
You never know.
Exactly. So this is the year you have to take a shot.
Well, look at Denver. Denver has Jokic, has MPJ in his prime or entering his prime. Has Jamal Murray. They trade for Aaron Gordon. They go all in, and then Jamal Murray blows out his ACL like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
I mean, they for those 2 weeks they looked phenomenal. Like, they looked like they're going to the championship. And now, MPJ may never play a basketball game again. I have no idea how that back issue is going. But their championship window that looked to be like, hey, you got the next 3 or 4 years to compete for a championship. Jokic is 26. They may spend the next 2 years just trying to recover from injuries.
Yeah.
And they have so far this year. So you just don't know how long that window is going to be open. Like Boston, another example. Boston, they had all those picks, and they were competing in the playoffs, and they still had like all of Brooklyn's first round picks lined up, and they had Brad Stevens, who's a great coach. Like, the future looks super bright. And now look at Boston. Like, they all hate each other, and they're they're like fighting New York for the 12th, they're like the 10th spot right now. Like, you just don't know how that's going to end up. So you don't know if DeMar's going to play at an MVP level. You don't know if someone's going to get injured, and it's going to be serious enough to derail that kind of conversation. So you have to, and I'm not saying you should value one over the other. I'm just saying that's the proposition you have to ask yourself is, do you value the possibility of a championship now, or the potential of the potential widening of that championship window in the future? And so, I think that ultimately that's what this comes down to is, do you feel like this is the year and you go all in and you have a chance, so you do it because you don't know what tomorrow brings? Or do you think it's not worth going for this year? I think we've got a good core that if we keep around can be competitive for years to come. So whatever one you value more, I think, is really where you're going to come down on whether these trades are going to be worth it for you.
Yeah. I think Nippy, he said only thing is if it doesn't work out this year after a big move like that, and it seems like they don't fit, there's not much left to work with. And I think that's where, like, everybody's talking to Acme in the chat, and that's where it comes in. I think the landscape, the stigma, the outside looking in to this organization has changed now. I think Zach LaVine potentially being an all-NBA guy, going to his second All-Star game, DeMar DeRozan coming here and showing guys that come in as free agents that, like, hey, sorry, he was sign and trade, but that, no, guys, it's changed here. This is a fun place to play. Come rock with us. I think this is going to be a place where free agents are going to want to come. So, yeah, losing Pat, if we have to trade him, it's going to suck. It's going to hurt my soul. It's going to hurt it. But
I hate it.
But I think in a way, I mean, I think that's veterans, guys that are going to be free agents, guys that are thinking about leaving when they maybe have one more year left on their contract. They're going to say, I kind of respect that. They're willing to do whatever it takes to go get a championship, whether, and I think I think we have to kind of shift from like draft capital definitely means a lot, but I think you have to shift your focus to, like, okay, we're actually a destination now. So I think we can start to be like, okay, well, maybe we'll start to get some love from some of these free agents that want to come here and play with Zach LaVine, who's going to sign a supermax. He's still young, and you can go at another championship run with that guy. So that's just the way I'm thinking about it going forward as well. If we trade Pat, and even if we don't, like, I think there's still going to be people that want to come play here.
I agree, and you also have to remember what are all these draft assets and trades, and what is it for? It's to win a championship, right? Ultimately, that's the goal. And so for me, it's been hard to transition because I love Wendell Carter, I love Patrick Williams, I love Kobe White. I want to see those guys. I want to see them win because I like those players. I want them to flourish.
Yep.
And so it's been a challenge for me to kind of transition my thinking into, all right, well, do I want to see that more than I want to see the Chicago Bulls win a championship? Because I may have to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
And so with Wendell going out and Vooch coming in, it's like I would have rather kept Wendell. Personally, I wouldn't have done that trade personally because I think the 2 first-round picks and Wendell I think would have been better in the long term. But hey, Vooch helps this team a lot more right now than Wendell would have, right? And the moves, I feel the same way about Pat. I think Pat is going to be an amazing player. I really do. I really am high on him, no matter what the production's been so far. I just believe that he's going to be a great player. I also have to ask, is he going to be a great player here during this timeline with this team? Is he going to be able to reach that potential as the 5th option in the starting unit that has Lonzo and Zach and DeMar and Vooch in it? Maybe not, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Pat won't reach his ceiling, won't reach the ceiling of his potential on this current squad because of the timeline that they're on.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I think it's, if he went to Detroit and they got him all those on-ball reps, I think he might have a better chance of reaching his potential than he does here. Then again, put him around championship players and great vets in this kind of environment, maybe that's what transforms him, right? Maybe like for example, what happened with Kawhi, right? With the Spurs. He became that actualized version of himself organically over time. So you just don't know. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a gamble. If you make a move, it's a gamble. If you don't make a move, it's a gamble. You're taking a risk no matter what you do. So you just got to decide what risk is most important to you, what you value the most, and you go all in. And that's what I love about this front office is when they have a conviction about something, they make a move. They do what they feel, right? And that's what I hated about the last front office is they sat on their hands so often when they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And so AK is going to make moves you disagree with, right? You may disagree with the Wendell trade. You may disagree with the Gafford trade. You may disagree with the draft pick that they made. But you can't knock the hustle. Like these guys go for it. They just go for it. And so I appreciate that about them. And ultimately, whatever they decide, I feel like I'm going to be okay with it.
I mean, hey, our guy got in trouble for tampering, baby. Hey, he was gonna get it done either way. It didn't matter, So hey, we got
Fred's gonna hate you for that. Yeah, Fred's like, no, I don't want them to tamper. What are you talking about?
Oh, come on, Fred.
I know you're gonna have to hash that out at the podcast Palooza. By the way, I'm officially going to be in Chicago for podcast Palooza.
Let's go.
So I'm gonna be there February 27th in Chicago. I know it's gonna be super butt cold, but I'm into it. I'm ready. It's a cold world. Bundle up, baby. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for Chicago winter. I live in Indiana. I'll be fine. I know what that's like.
Hey, man, just make sure you don't get a jacket until you get here because you need a jacket from here for here. That's just how it goes. But
hey, David Robbins says I'm a little sleepy, but I got Bulls fever. That's how I'm feeling right now. That's definitely how I'm feeling right now.
Ooh,
a little sleepy, but got Bulls fever.
Man, hey, shout out the chat tonight, man. Chat was live tonight, man. We appreciate that, man. Seriously.
Yeah, you guys are great. You make the show so much better. Not only just for the content, but just for me personally, it's awesome. So
yeah, Indiana.
Let's see. Well, yeah, a short visit, but I was there for a couple years. I'm trying to see if I just want to make sure we're not missing any other questions that you guys might have. I think Ferg says Acme are magicians. I'm not worrying. That's kind of where I'm at too.
Yep.
Let's see. Jerami Wilson. We need to stop falling in love with the unknown. That might, that's holding us back. So Jerami, sounds like you value, hey, the opportunities in front of you, go for it a little bit more than, hey, maybe it'll be there in 5 years. And I respect it. I respect that view. And I am not like, I'm not 100% convinced that we're a title contender yet. I really want to see us play the Bucks a couple of times at full strength before I make that decision. But I'm close. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm close to it. What days do you guys go live on our show? Saturday night, every Saturday night, 11 p.m. Central. You can catch us live as you're doing now, or you can find us. You can find us on YouTube, on any podcast platform under the Barroom Network. Just search Barroom Network, and you'll find our show listed with a bunch of other shows that are really, really good. So definitely check those out. Check out Bulls Gold, is the other Bulls show with our guy Salim and Edward Schuler Jr. Oh, Ferg's from Gary. Nice. I spent some time in South Bend for a little bit, so love that city. Love the South Bend. We're on Spotify too.
That's what I wanted to bring up too before we get out of here. Is I had pulled up the Bull schedule.
Let's talk about this next week. It's
bad. And they are not
brutal.
playing games with us. Like they're not playing games.
Technically, they are playing games with us. And those games are going to be a good test. I'm sorry, I'm killing you.
You do.
I got the dad jokes, baby. Got the dad jokes for you.
You gotta love the dad jokes. Seriously, you gotta love the dad jokes. I would like to see them win the next two. Knockout, especially if Luka's out tomorrow, and the Detroit on Tuesday, and then Brooklyn, and then Golden State back to back at home, but back to back. My goodness.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. We got 5 games next week in 7 days. Tomorrow, Sunday against the Mavericks at Mavericks. Then the Pistons Bulls game that we got postponed earlier in the season, that's on Tuesday at home. The next day at Nets. So we got a back-to-back with Pistons and Nets, both at home. And then on Friday, so 2 days later, we only get 1 day off. We got Warriors at home, and then go to Celtics on the road the next day. And then that's this week. So then the next week we go Grizzlies at Grizzlies on Monday. They're killing the league. And then we have back home for Cavs that Wednesday, and then the Bucks at their place on Friday. So those 8 games, those 8 games are going to be a really, really tough gauntlet. So that's why these games that we have been able to kind of give us a buffer on in the last, on this 9-game winning streak is going to be really important. So I'd love to see them pick up a win against the Mavericks and see what they do. So let's do official predictions for this 5-game schedule next week. What do you think they're going to go?
Okay, I'll go win against Detroit. I'll go their first loss in 11 games to Brooklyn. I'll go revenge game against Warriors with Vooch back. So a win. So what is that? That's
What about Mavs? Mavs tomorrow.
Oh, my bad. That's Sunday. So I got win against Mavs, win against the Pistons, loss against Brooklyn, win against the Warriors, and a win against the Boston Celtics.
so 4-1 for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 3-2. I think if we beat the Warriors, we're gonna be wiped out for the Celtics. And I think they're going to be they're pissed about that last loss.
Oh yeah.
And at home when we came back from 19 down. So I'm going to call 3-2. I think we beat Mavericks, Bulls, Warriors. Or we'll go we might beat Nets and lose to Warriors and Celtics back to back. Warriors going to be tough, but Klay Thompson, so Warriors are actually coming off a back to back when they play us on Friday. Yep. So that gives you some hope that we can beat them on Friday. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that Klay Thompson is probably not going to play that back-to-back. One of those 2 games. Either he's not going to play the game before or he's not going to play us. Yeah. So I'm going to go 3-2 for next week. The chat says, Ferg says 3-2. David Robinson says 3-2. Jordan, seeing red here, 4-1. No 5-0s, though. Anyone says we're going 5-0?
No.
Ferg says 5-0 earlier, but I think he changed his mind here. Yeah, I guess it's technically today now that we play the Mavs Sunday.
Yeah, no, I the 3-2, I get it. I could definitely see 3-2, but I think what gets me over the top for the Form 1 is the 2-day break after the Nets game. And that could get them a little bit more rhythm, you know, a little bit of rest, and they can get right back into things after that. Although I think you bring up a great point of the travel. It's well, I mean, the flight from Boston to Chicago is not long. I think it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So, yeah, I mean, it depends.
And the Bears will lose.
Hey, who's that? Wait, what are we talking about? The Bears now? Come on, man.
No, I'm just saying it says David Robinson's comment says, and the Bears will lose. That's his prediction. So appreciate that.
Man,
I don't care about the Bears here. Sorry.
Don't get me started.
Care about the Bears somewhere else.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started on them boys.
Hey, man. Larro, man. Great conversation tonight about these guys. I hope you guys that were listening or watching learn a little something new about these players. Maybe we convince you one way or the other if you think it's worth it, or just kind of the way, you know, to approach thinking about the decision that's coming up for Acme, because it's an important one. I think it's a really important one, and it could have really, you know, interesting implications for this year and going forward. Oh, yeah. One more thing. We might have Caruso back for the Warriors game. I'm hoping so. He went into protocols on Monday or Tuesday, I think. So he should be back. I'm hoping by Pistons, if not by Nets. And we should have the full squad other than Javonte. So I love this. I got to see my guy Caruso back. I can't get over how good he is at screen navigation. It's like basketball 6. So so much fun to watch.
Yeah, man. Hey, getting Caruso back. Wow. I can't wait. I just can't.
Yeah. I think that's gonna be it for us, guys. So Larry, you got anything else? You want to send us off?
Man, all I have to say is, guys, is this like Kris said, this was a great conversation tonight. I think we both did a pretty good job of kind of giving two different, you know, ideas to maybe giving up Pat, you know, and guys in the chat room, again, appreciate y'all coming in here, being interactive with us, you know, having some fun in the comments. But again, oh yeah, Jay, on the record, Kris wanted Kris
yes,
did want Caruso over a year ago. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. Kris was definitely on that. Hey, but here's the deal, man. If you love tonight, come back next Saturday. We got some more fun things on the horizon for you guys. We're gonna try to keep these things going for you. So when you come in here, you can have a little fun. Maybe have some questions for you guys to be more interactive with us, even more than you already have. But this is your boy Larro, my boy Kris Amundsen. This is another episode of Bulls 101. We'll holler at you guys. Peace.
Peace.